why coaching? You with your mindset, with your drive, I feel like you and Holly could have done anything and taken over the world. Why coaching and why Kerrville?
I tell you what, I appreciate your comments and your compliments. It's flattering, humbling. Holly's a lot more talented than I am. I can promise you that. She would probably be capable of taking over a lot of things. She is extremely driven, incredible work ethic. I'll brag about her. One of the better hardworking realtors in the community of
That's
Kerrville.
right.
I know you know that business. And
That's
you know
right.
what she's doing.
Absolutely.
Very talented in a lot of things. She was a great principal for she's in education for 30 years. You asked about coaching. It was a long story, and I don't know if I want to go into all the details of it. I can tell you I went to college. I had a high school football coach, and normally coaches can tell you a story about a high school coach who impacted them and got them into this business. And I've been 9 out of 10 coaches have a story to tell you about a high school coach who impacted them. Bobby Thompson was a brand new coach when I was a senior in high school. Came into our new community or into our school as a new coach in Ardmore, Oklahoma, and he changed the path and the direction of my life. I really had no plans to ever coach. I really didn't have plans to play college football at all. I was an undersized quarterback who was extremely average. Got to play in a state championship game. We fell short. Our tailback, who had committed to OU, fumbled 3 times, and I threw 3 interceptions. We had 6 turnovers and got beat by 6 points. So I put the math together. We were probably a better team, but we turned it over 6 times and got beat by Mulgee, Oklahoma. And I really thought my playing days were over. I was through, and he came to me one day and said, "Do you want to play college football?" And I said, "I don't think I can." And he said, "You can." And I had one offer from a small school in Kansas. They were going to pay for my school, a full scholarship, and I didn't want to go. And then Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas, I had 2 older brothers that attended there. They were playing football. The coach called me and asked me if I'd be interested in coming and being part of the team. I wanted to go to school to be a marketing major. My dad owned car dealerships. I was going to sell cars. That's what I thought I was going to do. So I went back. I went to school, went for 3 years in marketing, invited by the defensive coordinator at Harding to come be a church camp counselor for 2 weeks. And I said no, did not want to do that. He asked me again. I told him no again. And then 3rd time he said, "David, you need to come be a counselor at camp for 2 weeks. Just give me 2 weeks. I need some help, and I think you'd really enjoy doing it." So I go for 2 weeks, went to the church camp. I'm sitting out on the front porch of a cabin, talking to a guy named David Hyde. And at the time, I was talking to him about a girlfriend that I had at Harding. And funny thing is, I end up talking to him. He marries the girl that I was talking about.
Oh my gosh!
And he said, I was talking to him about decisions, I don't know what to do, and he said, "Well, it sounds like you may want to coach. Your brother coaches. Why don't you go back and coach?" And I went back to my academic advisor and told him I wanted to certify to teach, and he was in a panic because it'd take me another year to graduate.
Because you were 3 years in?
I was a junior. I was going to be my senior year, and I had to stay another year and a half to get certified. And my very first job was in Louisiana with some guys that I'd played college football with. In 1985, we won a state championship. We had a quarterback that had set a national record for touchdown passes. I moved back to Oklahoma, went to a brand new school as an assistant. We ended up playing for a state championship in 4 years. The quarterback that we had is now the head coach at the Naval Academy, Brian Newberry.
That's amazing.
Just a great young man. He was our starting quarterback, safety. He signed with Baylor out of high school. And then I went to a school in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City, Edmond Memorial, as an offensive coordinator.
Yes.
I was there for 2 years, and then the school split into 3, and I was fortunate enough to become a head coach at Edmond North. And Keith Patterson was a friend of mine. He became the coach at the Edmond Santa Fe High School. And 8 months later, he comes to me. I know this is a long story.
No, please. I have these in my notes, actually.
8 months later, he comes to the gym one night. I'm single. He said, Dave, we got a chance to go to Texas if you want to go to Texas. And I said, Keith, we've always talked about going to Texas. What's going on? He said, Todd Graham is going to get the head coaching job in Allen. It's a gold mine. They haven't won a district game in 3 years. Yada, yada, yada. He said, do you want to go be the offensive coordinator? So here my story is I've gone from being an assistant to a coordinator to a head coach, which are normal steps.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm getting ready to go back, take another step down to be a coordinator, but it's going to get me to Texas. When I moved to Allen, that's where I met Holly through a church friend. 5 years, we were engaged. 5 years later, I've met her, we're engaged. I get a job in Houston as a position coach, working for a friend of mine that I knew in Oklahoma.
So Holly's not from Kerrville?
She grew up in Fort Stockton, Texas.
So y'all met in Allen?
We met in Dallas. She was working in Hurst, Euless, Bedford School District as an assistant principal. I met her on a blind date, looking in a yearbook. It's a great story. She didn't really like me much. It was a friend of mine had a blind date. They pulled out an ACU yearbook to look a picture of a guy, and I'm looking over their shoulder. I see a picture of Holly, and I said, man, that girl's cute. So I said, man, that one, and they said, we know her. She just broke up with her boyfriend. And they got her permission to give me her number, and I called her. And Holly's quite a bit younger than me. I've been blessed. She's 10 years younger than I am. But we met. We went out on a date. She'll tell you it's the worst date she ever had. But her roommate had a 2-date rule, so we went on the second date, and we were engaged 6 months later. And 6 months after that, we were married. We moved to Houston. She's an assistant principal in Lakewood Elementary, and I'm a assistant coach, coaching quarterbacks at Jersey Village High School. A year later, I become the coordinator again. And then 6 years later, I was blessed to, beyond measure, to be able to be the head coach and open up Cywoods High School. Was there for 6 years. We had 2 years as a freshman and sophomore team, 221 football players our first 2 years. When I left 6 years later, we had 380 football players. Houston was a big town. Holly was in Tomball as a principal. The Kerrville job opened up. It was 4 hours closer to her family. It was an opportunity to be in a one-horse town and possibly do different things with the team and families. And God blessed us, and we had the opportunity to come here as a head coach in Kerrville.
Yes. Y'all are blessed. And that's one thing that I've noticed about you and Holly is y'all give all glory to God, and you're not ashamed of it. Why?
Well, that's that's how we were raised. It's how we grew up. Her parents were very strong Christian people. My family, my mom and dad were very strong Christian people. I never heard my mom. I never saw my dad. I never heard one curse word come from his mouth growing up. I never witnessed things that a lot of kids witness nowadays, but I was blessed. It's been part of our fabric. Our faith is important to us. We believe it. We trust it. Mm-hmm. And it's not always easy. We have gone through some tough times, and tough times aren't over. There'll be some more tough times coming down the road, and that's what we trust in. We believe the story of God. We believe the story of Christ came to save us, give us hope.
Yes.
And we're not going to venture away from that.
No.
That's our common thread in our family, and we hope it continues through our kids, and we hope we model that and live it to be a great, a good example to people that may not be exposed to it exactly.
Y'all do. And I'm recently saved myself, probably 2 years in. And, I grew up Catholic and everything, but it just recently I was saved. And they say you give glory to God and lead through your actions, and lead through your actions, and people will follow, and hopefully save souls through your successes. And y'all do, and you indirectly impact people, and it's almost a ministry what y'all have going on. Y'all are a power couple, and Kerrville looks up to you.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, you're very kind to say that. In our professions, as a principal, as a head football coach, athletic director, we are going to have some people that don't agree with what we do, and they don't believe that, and that's perfectly understandable because we're human, and decisions are made. I'm far from perfect. Hopefully, I've never come across as I'm relatively quiet. Sometimes that's a look of arrogance. It's an extreme shyness, to be honest with you. Crowds are not my cup of tea. I'm not a real vocal, life of the party type guy. Holly can come into a room and talk to the wall and know where the wall came from and where their family came from and where that sign came. And she'll know everything about them. She's gifted in that way, and I'm not. So sometimes that gives an impression to people that I'm arrogant, I'm aloof. Hate it. I have 2 boys, and one of them's followed that way with me, and I hate it. But we try to do right. We try to make decisions that are best for kids. And as a coach that's in charge of 140, 150 football players, I just want kids to know I care about them.
Yes.
I want kids to know that I sincerely want the best for them. And sometimes that's not easy to do. I want to, but sometimes people have different opinions and different ideas on how things should be done, and that's part of the business.
Well, I have you said 10 points there that I want to pick on, but and I want to go back to your, talking about your father and how he raised you, and we'll get back to that in a second, and because it also makes me reflect on my fatherhood, because I want my children to be successful as well. But I also want to come back to what you were saying about your stoic persona, if you will. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody's a Holly. Not everybody's a Coach Jones. Everybody's got their special gift and their special trade. Their little sprinkle is something that God put on somebody, and you are where you are because of who you are. And had you had that other trade, you may not have been where you are.
You never know, and I think coaches are thrust into situations to where they need to visit with people. They need to talk. They need to be able to communicate their ideas better. I've always been able to surround myself with coaches that are better than me. I've always wanted assistants that I never want to be the sharpest tack in the group. I want guys better than me. I've always tried to hire better. And I've been blessed. I mean, absolutely. I've had great staffs of guys here in Kerrville. I had a great staff of coaches in Cy Woods. I have had coaches here move on to be coordinators, head coaches. I have guys that I coached in Houston, or that worked with me in Houston, that have become head coaches. On this staff, just alone in Kerrville, I know of I have two head coaches that are now, were assistants here. I have 3 or 4 that have become coordinators, making the steps forward to become a head coach. And I have some guys on my staff right now that are going to become head coaches. So I've been blessed, and I've always tried to hire people that have that drive, but more than anything else, they have that passion and love for kids, because ultimately it's a relational business, and they got to know you care, and they got to know they're loved and cared about.
Yes. And, a position like a head coach, a superintendent, a mayor, city council, all of these positions, you're not going to please everybody.
No, you're not.
And
that's hard.
Yeah.
I want to be a pleaser. That's probably one thing that's been a problem for me, to a fault. I want people to be happy, and that's probably caused a few of my decisions that I have made. But I never made, and I'd say never. I've never intentionally tried to make a decision that I knew was going to hurt a kid.
Of course,
I've never done that, and hopefully I never will. But I think it's a problem being in a leadership position. You have to make a call, and you have to make a decision, and you go to bed at night, and you put your head on the pillow after you say your prayer and say, I just want your constant presence, and I want to do the best I can.
your guidance, the guidance, and that's why I stick to sales. I'll stick to media because I don't want no part of it, and I respect people who put their put it's true service to put yourself in a position to be judged like that.
Well, coaches, you have all kinds of them. You have the very arrogant. It's about them, egos. Coaches have egos, or you're not any good. You have to control them, I feel like. But if you're a coach or somebody in leadership position, you have to have a level of confidence, or you're probably not going to be real good. At the same time, I've always felt like you have to control it, and you got to be channeled where's your focus. And what I've tried to do in my career, and hadn't always done it well, fell short a few times, but I've always tried to have a core thought process and a core belief system that under pressure, I know what I'm going to do. And I think pressure reveals a lot of things about
Yes.
people. You get under pressure, you get it mounting on you. Where's your core? And your core is going to come out.
Yes.
And I've always wanted my core to be on the side of the kid and make the best decision you can that would affect that kid for a long time instead of maybe just an instant. But again, you're right. You are going to make decisions. You are going to cross people's paths in some negative ways, but you cannot operate that. You have to move and do the very best you can do as far as you stick to your core. And honestly, I've tried to do that the best I can.
Well, you've done great. All of Kerrville, including myself, looks up to you and respects you. One thing I wanted to hit on is when I was coming in and I knew I was going to talk to you, and thank you for coming on. One thing I really wanted to let you know is that after my high school years, I played ball all the way through. After my high school years, whenever I encounter difficult moments in my life, I envision my coach at his name is Coach Alan Kaiser. I don't know if you've heard of Coach Kaiser from Centerpoint, but I always envision that he was watching me, that he was there, and I could hear him. Come on, Barrera! Like I could hear him yelling, and I could hear him pushing me, and I've noticed through life at that moment, in that moment when it was happening, I was mad. I didn't want him pushing me. But later on, I had more respect for those who pushed me harder than I ever been pushed before, and made me do things that I've never done before, more so than I had for those who were enabling my my lazy tendencies, if you will.
You always, we tell our kids all the time, daily. We're in off season right now. We start at 7 in the morning, and they have to run a man maker at the end of it. It's a 200, a 300, or 400, and they have more. You always have more than you think, and that's part of being a player, an athlete. Coach's part is to challenge you, and I always want our kids to be challenged. I want them to be tough, and hey, life is not easy.
No.
I mean, you face things that are sometimes difficult. You don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. You feel like you've been mistreated, and you got to get up and go. And at the bottom line, that's what a coach does. I mean,
Yes.
we have to push kids, and I want, I want to make sure, we want to make sure our kids are challenged and they're able to meet expectations and meet challenges that they're going to face when they get out of football. Football's it is a great example of what life is. You're going to get hit in the mouth. You're going to get knocked down. Can you get back up and rally the troops? And, we all live through things. You've lived through things that are tough. I'm living through things that are tough or have, and it's not easy. But you don't have the opportunity. You don't have the chance to just lay down and quit.
No.
TFND's real. You got to fight. You have to get up. And it sounds harsh and sounds cruel to people who don't really understand what competition is, but you don't go to work and have people give you stuff.
No.
You have to go work, and you don't have a choice. And I think that's, the coach did a good job.
Yes.
He did a great job getting on you when you wanted to be lazy. That's what a coach should do.
Absolutely.
And if we, and I've said this before, and I'm not any smarter than anybody else, but if it's just about a weird shaped ball, and I gave a talk up at a clinic last week we didn't talk about football. We talked about what counts when you're chasing the gold ball. What really counts. And if we're going to get tied up on crossing the goal line more than the other team, then that's your business and that's your choice. If that's all it's about, that's okay. Personally, I think there's a lot more lessons to be learned than getting that oblong, weird-shaped ball across the line more than the other team. But you're judged by that,
Yes.
and I certainly understand that. Yes. You're judged by that. That's what life is, and that's what this profession is. I will be judged by that as well, and I understand that. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I don't want a kid ever to leave Tivy High School that we coached that thinks winning a football game is more important than anything else. And unfortunately, I think we live in a society to where that is more important, and that's their business. I'm not going to judge them, but I'm not going to fall into the trap to say that's it or nothing. So that's just I'll get off my soapbox. But
no,
there's a lot more things important, and unfortunately, we're measured by W's and L's, and I certainly understand that.
I do too, and the average person doesn't see that, especially the average person who hasn't.
Well, the average person sees the W's and L's.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
they don't. The people that want to get out on the Snapchats or the gossip centers and the football experts and all that, they don't. It doesn't matter to them what you're teaching a kid. It doesn't matter to them what you're trying to instill for them in life. It doesn't matter. They can blast Coach Jones. They can blast whoever because it's all about winning a game.
Yes.
They can sit behind a computer screen and say all they want to say, but they'll never – it's just ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous because life is bigger than that.
Yes, it is.
In my opinion, life is bigger than that.
It's also sad in a sense. You know, when you swallow your pride and you take a step back and you look at the scenario, that person's probably never been through controlled true challenge. That person's probably never been in a position to win big or lose big. That person's probably never been pushed like in the position of the player who has been pushed beyond what they ever thought they could do. These kids are winning no matter what the scoreboard says. These kids are truly winning.
You're right, and I think you hit it on the head. And I remember, we got beat in the state championship when I was a senior in high school, and I said, I'll never play again. I'm done. And the coach talked to me and said, why would you give up now? I said, you know what? I'm not going out a loser. But I thought everything was just about football. I was a young kid. I got my name in the paper. I got my picture in the paper. I walked around town, and everybody knew who I was. So I was David Jones, the football player. I could walk into a store in Ardmore and people would give me clothes. NIL back in the 70s. I didn't pay for stuff. I went to a restaurant. My ticket was always picked up. I'm a 16, 17-year-old kid living in a little southern Oklahoma town. It didn't. I thought that was it. I thought that's who I was. And after that last game, I wasn't special anymore. There's another quarterback taking my place, and they kept playing the game. And it was an eye-opening experience. I started thinking, I said, you know what, there's more to this. There has to be more. I remember sitting in a motel room in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1985 after winning a state championship. We were undefeated. We had a quarterback that set a national record touchdown passes in a season. He signed with LSU. He's a stud. He did surgery on one of my boys' shoulder last spring. An incredible young man. And I was single, but I wanted that ball so bad. We won 36-0 in the state championship. Gosh. And I sat in my room by myself and I said, wow, this is it? This is what I mean, and that's sad. I couldn't even, and I may be weird. I may be different. I said, wow, this is all there is. And I sat there and thought to myself, there has to be more than this. So we leave. I'm single at the time. I could move anywhere I wanted to. I had another opportunity to go to Oklahoma, like I said. And in 4 years, we're playing for another state championship. I said, man, coaching's easy. This is easy. I played for one. 10 years later, I got a ring. 4 years later, we're playing for another one, and I go to being a coordinator. 2 years, we're playing for a state championship again. Been in 3 state championship games. been in some semifinal games, played in a state champion. I've been in that arena. We played in front of 15, 20,000 to try to win the state. I coached in those arenas. And every time after it was over, I said, this is not enough. This doesn't make sense to me. So sooner or later, you have to decide, and I don't mean to be screaming or preaching at people.
Please,
you just have to decide, what is this really all about?
Yes.
Because if that's it, if that's all there is, and there's nothing else after that, you're wasting a lot of time. Because there's only going to be very few people, and then that some people can listen to this, and they're going to say, well, he doesn't want to win. That's exactly how they'll interpret that. He doesn't want to win. And he's just making excuses for their record not being 6-3 or 7 and whatever.
Yeah.
He's just making excuses, trying to make, and I get all that too. But I don't, at this point in my career, I don't really care. And that's horrible. I do care.
Say
I
it,
do
Coach,
care. I want people to appreciate what we do.
No.
And I don't ever want that to change. But I do believe, and we believe as a staff, that there are things more important than just a W.
You hit the nail on the head. And I'm not just going to talk about me, but I'm telling you this so I can relate to you. And I can tell you that this epiphany I had this past year, what you just said, I didn't expect, but I had the chills the whole time because I wanted to say this so bad. I thought something was wrong with me. So this past year, I thought I was broken. Every time, so me and Sheena had hard beginnings due to, how we set ourselves up. We paid $120,000 off in 4 years, living well below our means. Dave Ramsey, we saved up, got out of debt, got our credit up, got our first house. And when we got our first house, and this was happening prior to this, every time I hit a goal, when we got our first house, I had a sense of sorrow. When we got our second house, I had a sense of sorrow. When I got this plaque, I had a sense of sorrow. And every time I hit these big achievements, I never get these Christmas morning, I won the Super Bowl moment. I always get a sense of sorrow. I'm getting the chills again. And I told my boss, I was like, Summer, what the hell's wrong with me? What's happening? Why don't I get this? I achieved. I'm here. I made it. Why don't I get this moment, this I've arrived moment? And she's like, John, you're not broken. I've got it too. And a lot of other winners who truly have it, I don't have it figured out, but a lot of winners who truly are focused have it too. And I said, well, what the heck is it? She's like, it's about the hunt. It's, the hunt is over. Once you've achieved what you've achieved, the hunt is over. It's not about this plaque for you. It's about the actual act of doing what you love to do. It's about getting under contract. It's about fighting for every single dollar you can get. It's about seeing your boys make a breakthrough on the field that nobody else sees. It might even be in practice. It's about these little moments. It's about the actual hunt. And then when you achieve the actual the award, you're sitting in a hotel room going, is this it? Like, is this, I got the plaque, but it's about the hunt for me personally.
I think you're right. I think it's a lot of things incorporated in that. I think ultimately, but why are you on the hunt? I mean, why? And there's a lot of talk and a lot of public discussion about what's your why. What's your why? What are you doing? Well, bottom line is, why do you do what you do? If I was going to go sell property, sell houses, I would want to make sure that people were happy and be excited that they found their dream home. I had something to do with that. What a feeling that I know Holly gets a lot of great feelings when she knows somebody is excited and she had just a small part in that accomplishment. And you get a commission, but if it's just about money and if it's just about that and there's nothing else, it's going to be like that football going across the line. There's nothing left.
No.
It has to be more than that. And I think coaching, selling real estate, being a minister, whatever you do, it has to be more than a paycheck. I mean, a paycheck is necessary in our world, absolutely. And I want as much of a paycheck as I can possibly get because it makes life easier. But at the same time, coaching, you get paid. And I mentioned at the clinic last week, I spoke, paychecks in coaching are the moments you see a kid. I had a kid named Fred, and I used him as an example. Trouble, hard-headed, hard to coach at times, but for whatever reason, we hit it off. And the moments that you have with him in those dark times, when you watch him come to church, when you get that phone call from him wanting to be baptized, when you get that conversation with him saying, I'm not going to college. And I said, yes, you are going to college. He said, I ain't going. And I'm not, yes, you are. And I said, you're going to sign your name on a scholarship and you're going to go to a college degree and I'm going to be there when you walk across that stage. And he says, what? I said, you're going. He said, you'll be there? And I said, my family will be there, Fred. And I get a phone call here in Kerrville one day, and he said, Coach, what are you doing December 18th? And I said, I bet I'm going to a graduation. Sure. Those are the moments that are paychecks. But those are the moments nobody ever sees. And that's why you do what you do.
You know,
that's
Coach,
why you do what you do.
No, you could be all about the commission check. You could be all about the plaque, about, hey, we got more wins and losses. But if you're not providing value and instilling lessons in these kids, or these first-time home buyers, or if you're not truly all about the hunt, then what the heck is it for? Why didn't you just give up on this kid and say, you know what, you're difficult, you're fired.
Well,
you're fired.
I had an opportunity to do that. I had an assistant coach. We were in a meeting, and I walk in. I'm not in the coach. I walk in, and it gets real quiet. And that's one of those moments, the conversation is something that the other guys did not. I had 10 or 12 assistant coaches, and my office was in another part of the room. And when I walked in, the room got real quiet. I said, what's going on? Nothing, we're good. I said, no, tell me what's going on. So one of the coaches spoke up and said, well, he's making us look bad. It looks like we don't have any discipline. It looks like we don't have. I said, oh, stop a second. How many times have you taken that kid home? How many conversations have you had with him? How many times have you taken him to eat? How many times have you invited him to go to church? How many times have you done that? And the answer was 0. So I proceeded to lose my temper, and I try not to do that very often.
Yeah.
I said, I tell you what, until you do that, you don't ever say anything about us looking bad. Until you spend some time with that kid and you invest in that kid, you don't need to say another word.
You're passionate.
I will not. It was my decision. I will not kick that kid off this football team. Do you understand that? And I talked to him like he was a little 5-year-old kid. He said, yes, sir. The 2 coordinators I had said, Coach, we got it. We got it. It was never discussed again. That kid missed 9 games his junior year for discipline. He had been punished. He missed 9 games. He had been punished. I was not going to get rid of that kid. And I made a habit. We are going to go 1,000,000 miles with a kid. We're a coach. We're the coach.
Not just a football coach.
We're a coach. And a coach means you help kids. Yes, on the outside, it can look like you don't have discipline. It can look like you run a loose ship. But until people get involved in a kid's life, don't say anything else.
These are the things that the public...
Sometimes you have to help. Kids don't get it sometimes. They don't understand.
Yes.
Kick them out. Okay, that makes coaches look tough. You kick them out to what? What good did you do that kid? Now, granted, sometimes you have no choice. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, you have no choice. Mm-hmm. They do it to themselves. But I refuse to be that guy. I'm not going to be the one.
You don't quit.
No,
You don't quit on the kid.
You don't do that. And the reason I probably feel so strongly about that, as a young coach, I made some mistakes that could have probably caused me to get out of the business or make me not want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some mentors and I had some people who guided me through that, and it made an impression.
And they didn't quit on you.
You don't give up. You keep fighting the fight.
I guarantee you, in his life, that created a compound effect.
Well, I'm going to tell you this right now, and this is how God works. I got a text from that young man the same day I was talking about him. He wants to come over and talk to our kids. When can I come over? I'm ready to tell my story. That's that kid. But you're going to judge me by a win or a loss.
Yes.
Tell me if that's a win. Is that a gold ball? That's a gold ball.
Yes.
To me. And coaches have those stories all over the country. Coaches in Kerrville have the same story. They may not have a gold ball, but they have a gold ball story.
That's right.
And I think that's what I spoke about in that clinic. And I think that's why people from all over the United States are so shocked at this coach from Texas that had over 5,000 and something yards of offense this year and blah, 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 had snapped 108 times against that. All those numbers didn't mean a thing. That didn't mean one thing to those guys from all over the country that listened to that speech. They didn't care. They're going to go back and find gold ball moments. And that's what this is. That's why we do what we do. I'm sorry, I don't need to be self-righteous. I don't need to be preaching. But ultimately, that moment with Fred is a gold ball moment. Always will be.
You're not being self-righteous. What this is doing is this may have a compound effect on somebody we don't even know. Thousands of people are going to see this.
I hope they do.
And
I hope they enjoy it.
I'll
try to do better.
I edit the heck out of all my stuttering and stammering, so don't worry about.
Well, you can edit my stuff out too.
No, but Coach, that's what the average person doesn't see. The average person doesn't see what happens behind closed doors, what happens in practice, what happens in the middle of a deal, what happens in the middle of negotiations, and those are the true reasons why I personally am addicted to this job. And it's so funny because my job and your job, and Holly can tell you how similar they are, and they're totally different worlds.
Yep.
And that's why I believe football and athletics and competing and challenging yourself as a youth is so important. Being part of something bigger than yourself, having some responsibility, having an outside force pushing you harder than you've ever been pushed before. And my dad used to tell me before he passed, boy, you don't see people until you know what hits the fan. That's when you see people. And he's
That's
like,
the pressure.
Yeah, you need to get yourself to that point. And when you're at that point, study who you are and learn to train who you are at that point. It's hard to get to that point. It's hard to go till failure.
Well, we try to, we've always, since we've been here together, I have a couple of guys that have been here most of the time, but when we get our kids as the ninth graders, they know one thing is going to be emphasized to them until they graduate. And that one common thread that we've always tried to teach our kids is, number one, you will never, ever be the most important person in this room. That's biblical. God said, what's the 2 commandments? Love God, love others.
That's right.
That's pretty simple.
That's right.
And we have that. Those are our two commandments in our weight room. Those are our 2 commandments in the locker room. And I'm not theological. I'm not a preacher, but I do want our kids to know God is number 1. And number 2, that person sitting next to you is more important than you. Those are the 2 commandments that we're given. That's pretty simple. I'm a coach, not real intelligent. I have a master's degree, but that's easy for me to understand. I've been given 2 commands, and I'm supposed to love God. I'm supposed to love others more than myself. That's what I'm supposed to do. And we want our kids, when they enter our program, to understand, look, love God, but that person sitting next to you will always be more important than you. You need to understand that. And we emphasize it, we preach it, we talk about it. And we believe that when seniors graduate and they walk across the stage, if we ask them what are a couple of things that you feel like this program emphasized to you, and I firmly believe they would think about it. They may say something, they'd come back, whoa, the other person's more important than me.
Yes.
I think we really believe that's what they would tell us.
I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, if you help enough people reach their goals, then you'll reach yours. Basically, if you provide enough value to the market, you will get paid. So I have so many, you gave me like 5 points to go off of on that one. So you mentioned Fred. Fred wanted to get baptized. You saved a soul. And I know you don't want to take direct credit for it.
The good Lord, I planted a seed.
I know.
Planted a seed, loved somebody, and the good Lord provided the nourishment and the water. So, yes.
Yes, but you could have used your platform as the head coach and been like, all right, I'm not going to ruffle any feathers. I'm not going to offend anybody. We're not going to, talk about our Lord here. But you do. And including my nephew, you bring people to Christ, through actions, through challenge, through leading from the front.
We've just made a decision, and I think Holly's the same in real estate. It is a way to help, and coaching is a way to help. We enjoy that. The coach's office is a fun place to be. The coaching profession is a great profession. It is a great profession, but you have hardships. You have hardships, and you have to weather it. Not easy. Extremely emotional. Extremely hard.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want any part of it, but that's the reality, and you handle it. But until you get in the arena, it's just an empty feeling. It's just there's just not a whole lot out there if you're not willing to jump in and care about people and try to figure out some way to be productive. It's just, what else do you do? I mean, just sitting here thinking, what else? I can go play golf every day, but sooner or later, I'm not going to just, I don't know. I just think there's so many more things. And so you're an older man, done it for 44, 45 years. A lot of people say, man, it's time. It's time. Well, that's your opinion. That's somebody's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But it may not be. There's some other young men that may need some help.
That's right.
And you may have an opportunity to help somebody. And you may be able to win some more football games along the way.
Yes.
But until you really come to grips, and you said it a while ago, your dad said pressure, heat. Hey, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you? And I think God needs to be in the center of that. Now, my faith wanes. I'm weak. I struggle.
Me too.
I suffer, and I'm not a very good example at times. But down deep in my gut, I have a philosophy that those kids that come in that room every day are important. And it's our mission, our goal, is to have some form of impact on that young man's life. At some point in time, we want to impact that young man. And I think that's worthy. I think it's worthwhile.
You notice that throughout history, it's always Dad talking about his football days. Why do men do that? Also, veterans talking about when they were part of something bigger than themselves, talking about when they were challenged harder than they've ever been. You notice veterans do it too. You notice, anybody who's been part of something, they always revert back to that moment to where they were going through something hard.
We need to belong. People need to belong, and people need to know it was a worthy cause. That's normal. That is a normal need of mankind.
Yes.
You need to belong. And we search for ways to belong. Some young people in that building up there right now search for some negatives. but they belong to a group. They belong. They feel like they're fitting in. There's some groups up there that want their hair a certain way, and they find those groups and they feel good about it. There's the mankind, period. We need to belong, and that's never going to change. Never will change. Always has been. And a football team, an athletic team, a basketball team, golf, whatever it is, you always have those kids who are searching for a spot.
But it's harder to do that. It's harder to do that. It's harder to be part of something like that. It's easy to get sucked into a crowd that will accept anybody. You know what I'm saying?
There's no price to pay.
There's no price to pay.
No price
Anybody
to pay.
can get in.
Cool.
And the logo, if you will, means nothing because everybody can get it.
Yep.
But when you come out in one of these and you're wearing one of these, you had to summer practices, SAC camp. You worked your butt off to be wearing
stripe on the helmet. We have a night that we have a striping, and we bring the varsity parents and varsity kids. They can have their little sister, little brother. I have pictures of my wife, my daughter, and my 2 boys striping their helmet. A lot of sacrifice went into that. A lot of work went into that. But that stripe means we're one group, one family. We did what we did together. And for this year, that's the symbol, and that's the group that's going to represent this community, the school. And everybody knows when they put that stripe on there, they did exactly what you said. They showed up for SAC. They've gone through practice. They've gone through off season. They have sacrificed to earn that T on the side of that helmet. And I think those are moments that are important to families. And it's important that they're together, and it's important that they get to celebrate that. So we try to include that. We have it a special night, and it's a neat celebration. I showed a picture of it at the presentation in Dallas. And I have a coach from Louisiana who's won 7 or 8 state championships going to call me and wants to talk to me more about the details on how they can do that. So you're right. It's not easy.
No.
And it's not for everybody. And you're no less of a person if you don't play football. You're no less. You just have a different interest. Mm-hmm. And that's perfectly okay. But there is a price to pay to be successful.
That's right.
And you have to learn to work, and you have to learn to get up and go. And you cannot sell a house if you don't get up and go. No. You cannot do it. It's not going to work. You're not going to get any money. And you're not going to have anything happen if you stay around and do nothing. So life is like, you got to get up and go. You got to compete, and every day is competition, and you do not have a choice. You have to go. You find something you love and passionate about, and you'll be successful.
It is. There is an equal and opposite reaction for everything you do, even if you're not getting the direct effect right off the bat. If I'm sitting at home playing video games, and the kids are daddy, and I don't play video games anyway. I used to a long time ago, but if I do that, I may not directly feel the financial reaction, but I tell you what, in 90 days I'm going to.
Sure.
And it's the same with kids coming up. You get sucked into something that's super easy to be in, and everybody can get into it. There's an equal and opposite reaction. And I'm not calling any specific group out, but I'm just saying if it's hard to get, then there's pride involved in it. And one thing I was going to ask you, you mentioned your dad and his upbringing and how he had that stoic demeanor to him as well. What kind of fatherhood did he, because this question's for me mainly, because what kind of fatherhood did he provide to create a head coach, an athletic director, somebody like you?
Well, my dad was a high school graduate, barely. Went to the Army, served in Korea. Very, very talented mentally. Could do math. I always went to him for all my math issues. He could do calculations, percentages, all in his head, never used a piece of paper. He could remember cars that he sold to people years ago. He could remember the price they paid. He could remember the car they traded in, and he could remember what he gave them for that car. He had a brilliant memory that way. An incredible work ethic, very generous. made good money, real good money when we were all in college. After that, didn't make a lot of good money, had some poor investment. My dad was a person who would buy a ranch that was not very pretty, get a bulldozer out there, tear some things up, move some things around, re-fence it, redo it, and it ended up beautiful. And he would flip ranches and flip farms and things like that. Made some real good money. Then the stock market and commodity market, he had some oil stuff, but he was never scared to take a chance. He was never scared to take a risk. Didn't make good choices all the time toward the end of his life. But we all knew, I had a younger sister, 2 older brothers. We always knew 3 things, or 4. My dad was going to go to work and come home. We were going to go to church on Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday night. And if we're on the road traveling somewhere and it was church night, we were going to find a church to go to. And it didn't matter what town we were in, we would walk in there and we'd be at church. So we knew 100% that God was the center of what our family was going to be. He was always at football games. He never missed a football game. He missed a lot of track meets. He missed a lot of basketball games. He missed a lot of my tennis and golf matches. In fact, I don't know if he ever watched me play tennis or golf, but he didn't miss a football game. He absolutely loved football. I had 2 older brothers that were very good football players, extremely good, very, very high caliber. I played at Harding as well. My older brother has become a coach, won 7 or 8, 9 state championships.
Wow. Both of y'all.
He has had, he's on staff right now at Missouri. He's the assistant to the head coach. So our life has been that. My dad loved football, and he would take us on football trips, weekend trips, and he was just an incredible example. You work hard. I watched my dad one night, or one afternoon. We were at the 70 Cafe in Ringling, Oklahoma. He had a ranch out there, and he had a deal to make. He wanted to buy some cattle, but he didn't have enough land exactly. So him and another man sat at a table, and I'm there. I'm a high school, junior high age kid. And they pull out a napkin, and they start writing down numbers. And this is back in the late 60s, early 70s. And the deal was worth $650,000. I'll never forget it as long as I live.
That's like
one of them was
gonna
provide this, one of them was gonna provide this, and the total $650,000. They signed their name on a napkin. I got in the truck and I said, "Dad, what were?" He said, "That's our deal." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "That's what I'm doing." I said, "So you're providing?" He said, "I'm providing $650,000. He's providing this and this." I said, that's how you did it?" He said, "I trust his word. He trusts mine." And that's how they did it. And my dad taught us the value of you be honest. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And for my example, watching my father, perfect? Absolutely not. He was not perfect. But he taught us some valuable lessons about you go to work and you go to church, and your word needs to be your word. So,
and you applied that to your fatherhood.
Try to. I want my kids to be honest. If I watch Caden Carson in the weight room, and we all watch all our kids, but I'll look. I remember we say 6 reps. I want to see if they're going to get 6. And I want to watch that other. It says 5. Do you get 5 or you get 4?
Integrity. So
he taught us the value of if you say you're going to do something, do it.
Speaking of Caden Carson, this year was probably different than any other year you coached, and you mentioned that up at the banquet. And while we were on the phone, I was like, man, I want to hit on this, hit on that, hit on this. Was it difficult coaching your own boys? As far as, how hard should I be on them? Am I going to, favoritism? Are the other boys gonna see me? Did you have any of those inner challenges, or not really?
Being a coach's kid is not easy. Being a coach's wife, I think, is brutal. The things Holly has had to listen to in the stands, no individual should ever have to listen to that. Being a coach's son, with it comes some obstacles. I think had I pulled Caden Carson up as sophomores to the varsity football team, I think they would have struggled and suffered a whole lot more. Because at that time, we had some slot receivers that I felt like were plenty good. I wanted them to play JV. I wanted them to play because we thought it would help our JV team be successful. And it was. They both had real good years, and when they got to varsity their junior year, they had earned it. There will always be conversation that they get all the throws to them. They all get this, and this. That's come look at the stats.
Mm-hmm.
Do they make plays? Do they catch the ball when they're supposed to catch it? Do they get to the right place when they get there? Do they do what they're supposed to do to help their teammates? Do they know yes.
Team players.
There will always, as coaches' kids and as a coach coaching your own, I do not think I was any harder on them. I don't think I was easy on them. I tried to be as even across the board as I could.
Good for you, Coach.
I'm sure there were some players that played behind them that wished they could have played more, and I understand that. I'm sure there's some parents that wishes their son could have played more. At the same time, as a coaching staff, we talked through all of that. It wasn't just my decision. We discussed it weekly, daily, bi-weekly, bi-month, whatever. And we made choices that we felt like gave us the best opportunity to win. But as far as coaching my own sons, I've been blessed. They're not perfect, but they've really given me and Holly very few reasons to be upset. They have chosen to do certain things and chosen not to do certain things. And we've been blessed with their decision making up to this point in time. They're boys. They're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But I know a bunch of weekends when young people may be out doing some things that they probably shouldn't be doing. They're two redheads a lot of times sitting at home. Being a head coach's son is sometimes lonely. You don't get invited to some things that go on. You don't get to go to some parties that some of your teammates may be going to. And so sometimes it's lonely for the coaches' kids, but you have to hope that there's enough inside of them that they'll be okay, they'll understand it. And I guess it hadn't been too bad on them because both of them want to go to school, they're going to play, they want a GA, and they want to become coaches.
Amen.
So I guess it's been okay.
That's amazing. We can't stay here too long. I could talk my ear off or talk your ear off. If you just on a random number, how many young men have you coached that were inspired to become coaches?
Oh, geez. Well, I don't know, directly if I inspired him or not, but Brian Newberry, head coach at Navy, pretty cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
I have another kid. I don't know. I'm not sure I could even tell you a number, but there's a few out there, and it's fun. It's fun to think about, and I have a few that call me and text me and wish they were coaches, so they messed up. Wish they were.
Yeah, you gotta. Everything's uncomfortable. There's never going to be a perfect time to do something.
Yep.
Like if I wanted to exercise when it was sunny and everything was perfect, and then I felt like it'd probably be one out of every 50 or so.
Yeah.
So it's just take action, and I'm speaking to myself here mostly. Coach, I think it's come down to two last things. One is I'm going to ask you about your legacy, and two, I want to, if you got something to say to Kerrville, but we'll start with your legacy. And I know after this podcast, I'm like, Dad gummit, I had 3 extra questions. But you're welcome back, Coach. Yearly, quarterly, whatever you want. You're always welcome on the Kerrville podcast.
Well, I appreciate that. It means a lot. And
Yeah.
thank you.
And I wanted you on, and I didn't want to dive into numbers and statistics and all that. I just wanted to talk to you, just introduce you to those who may have never talked to you, and just really know who Coach Jones is and who your family is, what your beliefs are, what your your ethics are when you are coaching, what you're focused on. And I think that's super important than to get somebody on here and be like, well, you see, nobody likes that.
There's a lot of different ways of doing our job. Legacy, and the public can decide that. You have to get up in the morning, go to bed at night, knowing that you're doing the best you can do. And some people are going to think it's good enough. Some people are not going to think it's good enough, and you live with it. Yeah. I'm not a real. Well, I don't even know what the words are really. I'm not a person that's going to worry a great deal about past. What I want people to hopefully do is be able to say, I impacted young people in a positive way, and along the way won enough football games to be a success. We've averaged 7 to 8 games a year for 13 years.
It's amazing.
And that's, not bad in Texas high school football. Some people want it to be 10, which I do too. We had some tough years. We had a couple of real tough years. But I'll never forget, talking to 3 sons that lost their dads in a season. I will never, ever forget giving the eulogy at a young man's funeral that died in a horrible truck accident. Those moments will always be special to me. If that's legacy, if those things are important, I'll take that. And if we fell short on a game or two, I'll live with that as well. But at the end of the day, we try to teach our kids to love God, to love others. And if my legacy can be anything in Kerrville, I pray that people will understand that our kids were taught to love God and to love others. That's what I hope my legacy can be.
That's amazing, Coach. It is. I think you're at your guest 132, and I've had over 130 people sit on the other side, and some businesses have come in and not made it, and a lot of people have come in and are very prominent and have made it. And the difference in that question, the difference in the answers that I get is those who have made it and those who are making it, the answer's always been very similar to the one that you just gave. It's always service to others, glory to God, and what they can leave. Not focusing on me, I. It's always about others. And I don't know. I just had to say that because it's very cool, on this side listening. I feel like I get so much from this podcast, and I forget that we're recording. Last question, last anything is if you could say one thing to Kerrville about you being here since 2012, what would it be?
I'd say continue to support. Kids need you. Coaches need you. Be excited when good things happen. Try to be fair. Try to put things in perspective. If I could say anything in this moment in time to where I am in my life and on today and my world right now, judge people by what they try to do instead of a win or a loss, and try to be more comfortable knowing that there's a coach in Kerrville that's trying to change kids' lives and try to be impacting things that in reality matter. And just be supportive of the kids. Always find them and help them. And it's not easy being a young person in today's society. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of negatives out there. And the social media world is causing people to have to try to live up to stuff that's totally unfair, unrealistic.
Yes.
Life is not perfect like you read on everybody's Facebook page. You know, there's a beautiful vacation, and the wife is beautiful. The husband's the most romantic man in the world, and everything's great. They don't put the reality on that.
No, I don't.
Our kids are bombarded with a lot of things, so just love them, care about them, support them, and I promise you, we have incredible young people in this town that we can be proud of.
Amen, Coach Jones. What an honor, man. Thank you for coming on.
Well,
All right,
you.
everybody. Coach Jones, hopefully you come back.